It was one of those mornings when the world felt heavier than usual, when the air itself seemed to carry the weight of a man's worries. Evan Malone wiped the sweat off his brow as he tightened the last bolt on a customer's old pickup truck. His hands were rough, scarred by years of labor at a small-town auto shop, but his heart was softer than anyone would guess. He wasn't just fixing engines to pay bills. He was trying to rebuild a life that had fallen apart 2 years ago, when his wife passed away and left him alone to raise his little boy Noah. That day, as the noon sun blazed over the empty road leading out of town, Evan spotted something unusual while driving home. Just beyond the curve near the old oak field, a tiny figure stumbled onto the dusty road. A little girl barefoot, her pink dress torn at the hem, her hair tangled like she'd been running for miles. Evan hit the brakes hard, the tires squealing as his heart raced. She looked no older than 7, her eyes wide and frightened. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because what happened next proved that even small acts of compassion can rewrite destinies. Evan slowly stepped out of his truck. Careful not to scare her, the little girl froze, clutching a worn-out teddy bear against her chest. Hey, he said softly, though his voice trembled with concern. It's okay, sweetheart. I won't hurt you. Are you lost? Her lips quivered, and after a moment she whispered, I can't find my mommy. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she tried to speak again but broke down into sobs. He knelt beside her, his heart aching at the sight. The sun beat down and she looked exhausted, her tiny feet scraped and blistered. Evan opened the passenger door and gently helped her in. He offered her a bottle of water from the glove compartment, and she gulped it down, shaking. What's your name? He asked quietly. Between hiccups, she murmured, Leela. The local sheriff's station was 20 minutes away, but something in Evan's gut told him this was more than just a simple lost child case. There was a look in her eyes, not just fear, but confusion, like she'd seen something she couldn't explain. He drove straight there anyway, reporting her found and giving every detail he could. But after the paperwork and questions, the officer told him that no reports of a missing child named Leela had come through yet. We'll keep her here, the deputy said, just until we hear something. But as Evan turned to leave, Leela clung to his arm, crying, Please don't go. I don't want to stay here. Something inside him shattered. Maybe it was because he saw his own son's face in hers, the same helpless fear. So after some convincing, the officer allowed him to keep her for the night, promising to call as soon as they heard anything. That evening, the Malone house, small, creaky, and smelling faintly of motor oil, filled with new life. Noah, a lively 6-year-old, instantly bonded with Leela over their shared love for toy cars and peanut butter sandwiches. Evan cooked pasta, the kind he always made when money was tight, and listened as Leela told bits and pieces of her story. Her mom had dropped her off at a big hotel, then went to talk to someone, but never came back. Leela had waited, scared and alone, until a loud argument broke out nearby, and she ran. Evan couldn't shake the unease in his chest. Something didn't add up. What kind of mother would leave her child like that? And yet as Leela fell asleep on the couch clutching her bear, he saw only innocence, not abandonment. That night, while Noah snored softly in the next room, Evan sat by the window staring at the moonlight spilling across the fields. His mind replayed the past. The nights he'd rocked his crying son to sleep, the pain of losing someone he loved, and now this strange girl who seemed to have dropped into his life out of nowhere. The next morning brought chaos. 2 black SUVs rolled up to the shop while Evan was working under a hood. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area like they were on a mission. Then she appeared. A woman in a white blouse and slate gray skirt, her heels tapping against the pavement. Her presence was commanding yet fragile, her eyes searching, desperate. She held up a photo. Have you seen this child? She asked the receptionist, her voice trembling. Evan froze when he heard the name, Leela. He stepped out, grease-stained and cautious. The woman turned, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Her face was striking, but her expression was fractured with pain. You found her? She asked, tears welling in her eyes. He nodded slowly. Her name was Vivienne Hartley, CEO of Hartley Innovations. One of the most powerful businesswomen in the country. It didn't make sense at first. What was a billionaire doing in a dusty small town, chasing after her missing daughter? The contrast between them couldn't have been sharper. She was wealth and polish, he was dirt and sweat. But when she saw Leela run into his arms, clinging to him like she'd known him forever, Vivienne's face softened. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You have no idea what you've done for me." But something strange happened. Instead of taking Leela immediately, Vivienne hesitated. She watched the girl interact with Noah, laughing, chasing bubbles in the yard, and there was a shadow of sorrow in her eyes. Later, when they sat at the small kitchen table, she confessed the truth Evan never expected. Vivienne's husband had died in a plane crash months earlier, and ever since, her world had collapsed under the weight of board meetings, investors, and vultures trying to take over her company. She had trusted her assistant to watch Leela for an hour while she handled an emergency call, and when she returned, both were gone. The assistant had disappeared, leaving her terrified and guilt-ridden. For weeks, she'd hired private investigators and begged the police for leads. Lila had been her entire world, the only light left after tragedy, and losing her nearly destroyed her. Evan listened quietly, his chest tight with empathy. "She's safe now," he said softly. "That's what matters." Vivienne nodded, but her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer than expected. "You're good with children," she said. "You remind me of someone I used to know before all this." Her voice faded, heavy with memories. The following days blurred into something almost surreal. Vivienne stayed in town to complete the legal formalities. During that time, she visited often, bringing small gifts for Noah and thanking Evan endlessly. Lila, however, refused to leave his side. Every night, she'd sneak out of the guest room at the hotel and knock on his door, asking if she could see Noah. By the third night, Vivienne stopped fighting it and just sat with them, watching her daughter giggle beside the humble mechanic who had given her peace. One afternoon, while fixing a flat tire in the driveway, Evan noticed Vivienne standing by the fence, watching the kids. The wind tossed her hair as she smiled, a genuine smile that looked like it had been buried for years. "You know," she said, "I used to believe money could fix everything. I built empires, bought islands, controlled boardrooms, but none of it ever filled the silence at home." She paused, her voice trembling. "You found my daughter, Mr. Malone, but maybe you also reminded me what being human feels like." He didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to moments like this, ones that made his heart ache and hope all at once. When it came time for Vivienne and Leela to return to the city, the goodbye hit harder than he expected. Leela hugged Noah tightly, whispering, "You're my best friend." Then she turned to Evan, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for finding me." Vivienne handed him a sealed envelope, saying softly, "Please open this when you're alone." Her car drove away, leaving behind only a trail of dust and silence. That night, after putting Noah to bed, Evan finally tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a check, a sum so large it made his hands shake. But the words beneath it mattered more than the money. "Some debts can't be repaid with dollars. You showed me what real care looks like, something my wealth could never buy. I'd like to offer you a position at Hartley Innovations, managing our new automotive foundation for underprivileged families. It's in the city, but housing will be provided. I believe people like you can change lives. Vivienne Hartley." He sat there for a long time, staring at the paper, unsure whether to cry or laugh. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a lifeline. It was a door opening into a future he'd never imagined possible. Weeks later, Evan and Noah moved into their new home on the outskirts of the city, a quiet neighborhood filled with green lawns and sunshine. He started his new role, using his skills to help struggling families fix their vehicles and find stable jobs. Leela often visited with her mother, and every time she ran into his arms, it felt less like a reunion